Hi, welcome to learnhowtogarden.com. In today's episode of the 10-Minute Gardener, we're doing our September things to do, jobs to do, things to plant in the garden. If you're not already subscribed to me at Learn How to Garden, there's a link directly above this film. Hop over to the website, pop in your email address. It means every single time we put up a film we can let you know. It also means you get access to our free monthly newsletter. I always think of September as the start of the year. I know that might sound really weird, but it sort of fits in with the school year here in the UK. But also it's the time of year when all the summer sort of fruit and the veg is coming to sort of the end, and it's the time when we start thinking about that new year. It's the time that you should have already ordered your seed catalogues so that they're all coming. And one of the most important jobs you can do is walk around your garden with a little notebook and make a list. Things that you've grown that have really worked for you, varieties that you've grown that have tasted so good you wished you had more of them. And also make a little note of those things you grew which there's still half of it in the ground, or those things you grew that you thought, I'm just a little bit disappointed with that. Because one of the real truisms is we only have a certain amount of time. We can't make time, we can't store time, we can't buy any more time. Therefore, the time we've got is the most precious thing in our garden. And it's really important that we're using that time to the best of our abilities. And at this time of year, one of the things you want to be doing is storing things for the winter. Now, for me at the moment, I am drying a lot of my tomatoes. They go into a hydrator, which means I can put them under oil, and I'm making a lot of tomato sauce. And one of the things for me that was a find this year are these beauties. These are a type of San Marzano tomato, but they are massive. But there's so little water in here that they make the most wonderful passata and sauce. So this is something that for me I'll be growing again, along with my sort of old favourites like Rose de Berne and Rosada and Bottendor. But this will be added to my list for next year, and that's the sort of thing we want to be doing. And as well as our seed catalogues, you need to be ordering things now that you can plant before Christmas. We need to order our garlic. Which garlic did well for you, which didn't do so well for you. You need to be ordering the Japanese onions. And this is to show you why you want to plant onions in the autumn. These are some Japanese overwintering onions. This is a string that I've just taken down. And these, along with a few of the other strings, will keep me going a long way through the winter. One of them I've just noticed is starting to look a bit green. It's probably been kept a bit hot, so we'll use that one first. So we're ordering our seeds. We need to order our sweet pea seeds now because they're going to need to go in before Christmas. The other thing that we can be sort of storing now, our potatoes all need to be dug up, dig the main crops up, leave them for a couple of days just to dry out, check them for slug damage or eelworm damage. Don't store anything that you're a bit iffy around. Store them either in hessian or paper sacks in a cool, dark place, and that'll keep you going again through the winter. One of the other things, I'm in my mum's 10-minute garden, or sitting on the edge of it. Just behind me here is the asparagus bed we planted earlier in the year. All those asparagus ferns need to be cut down flat, and you need to mulch the asparagus bed to keep it going. But there are still quite a lot of things we can sow. We can sow winter lettuces, and if you sort of think which ones, Rouge de Hiver is a great one, and any with winter in the name. Some of these will take -40, so they'll keep you going. Lamb's lettuce, which is also known as corn salad, great winter salad. A lot of the Japanese vegetables, Mizuna, pak choi, red frills mustard, they'll all keep you going throughout the winter. Turnips, which you'll get turnip tops off, are great. Again, now if you can keep them in an unheated greenhouse, you might even get some small turnips, and you can do the same with radish throughout the winter. Parsley and rocket I tend to sow now, and they both seem to much prefer these cooler conditions, and I even sow chervil at this time of the year. The other thing that you need to order in are your broad bean seeds and the pea seeds to grow through the winter. I only now grow my broad beans through the winter. And while we're talking about beans, one of the things behind me is one of my sort of new things for this year. I've tried to grow butter beans for years and they've been a disaster. The huge one here is a butter bean plant. but it's a very specific variety from Seeds of Italy, and it's been fantastic. I'm just going to go and pick a couple of the beans to show you what you get out of them. And this is again back to trying things new. These are a variety of butter bean that I got from Seeds of Italy. And if we just open this up, we can show you these wonderful big white beans. I love making a butter bean mash with these, but they are fantastic. So all the time we're looking, but read those catalogues, read the provenance of where seeds come from and what you expect it to do. Another great thing you can do now is when you're cropping your potatoes, if you've got any early potatoes that you haven't actually sort of used up yet, see if you can get a couple of them to sprout, pop them into a bag, and they'll grow quite happily in a protected environment like a greenhouse or a tunnel, and you could have new potatoes with your Christmas dinner. It's also a great time of the year for taking some cuttings, pelargoniums, rosemary, lavender, the sage. They all take really well now, and in our subscribers newsletter I'll actually be going into more detail about how I take my cuttings at this time of the year and showing you a propagator that I've come across that has reduced if you like, cutting propagators from my old mist propagator, which was 6 feet square, down to something that is about 18 inches square. So that's really quite exciting as well. And make sure you're getting everything ready for the sort of coming season. And that means that cleaning off all of the shading off the greenhouse, because now we're not trying to keep the sun out, we're trying to keep the maximum amount of sun into the greenhouse. Any tomatoes you've got, cut them off now at the last truss that's showing tomatoes in the northern hemisphere. You're not going to ripen all of them between now and when it comes to the end. And while we're thinking about tomatoes, basil. I've still got piles and piles of basil, and the best way I've found to deal with quite a few herbs is to make ice cubes, to actually freeze them in cubes, so you've got sort of herb cubes, and they are great just to drop into casseroles or for cooking, you know, with dishes. I find that the best way. But with basil, I find the best way to keep that is to actually make a pesto but leave the cheese out, if that makes sense. So you're using the oil, the basil, the garlic and the pine nuts, and that will freeze in small batches. Take it out of the fridge, defrost it, and then add the cheese. That seems to work the best for me for preserving basil. Other things you need to think about getting sown now are the green manures. If you don't want to know what green manures are, go onto the website, type in green manures, and that explains it. They're a way of adding vitality to your soil, keeping all the nutrients in your soil, and they do lots of different jobs, and it's a great time to get those in. Phacelia is my fave, great to go in now. Winter tars is great to go in now, and you can even get mustard that you could sow now before we put our garlic in later in the year. When it comes to walking around the garden, the other thing you might want to do is save some seeds yourself. Now, some things you can save. You can save these bean seeds and plant those yourself. You can take some of your garlic that you grew last year and you could break those bulbs up and you can do that yourself. You can even save your own onion seeds, but it takes a couple of years to save that and it's much more technical. But a lot of things you can't save seed of. You can't save seeds of any of your lettuce or brassicas. It's just too difficult. You're much better to buy those in each year. The other thing that you really want to be doing now is finishing off any of your sweet corn, and we'll pop down in a minute and I'll show you how to show if that is ripe. And if you're growing winter squashes, any that have got leaves around them, remove the leaves from around the squashes so the squash is exposed to as much sunlight as possible, and either sit it on something like a slate or some straw to stop it getting waterlogged. You don't want your squashes getting waterlogged. You need the outside of those squashes or pumpkins to harden up so that they will keep in storage longer. When it comes to the fruit garden, obviously apples are about to come into season. We'll be sort of eating apples. We'll be making more cider vinegar. And again, I think in one of our newsletters we showed you how to do that. A fantastic, easy thing to do. If you've never made it yourself, make cider vinegar. It can transform the simplest dressings on your salads. Cut down any fruited canes of summer raspberries or blackberries and train the ones in for next year. Keep an eye on your autumn fruiting raspberries. They should just about be starting to plump up, and now is a great time to remove about 1/3 of all the wood in your black currants. The older wood, cut it out. You can take cuttings at this time of the year, hardwood cuttings of black currants, gooseberries, even figs will take from cuttings at this time of the year. Order spring flowering bulbs. The sooner you can get them in, the better, with the exception of tulips. They don't want to go in before November. And make a pile of logs in the garden. Just get a pile of old logs, throw it in a corner in the garden. What that's to do is to encourage either hedgehogs or toads. The more of these things we can encourage into our garden, the better. And also sow some hardy annual flowers. I'll put a link below here to a film that I've made with Benjamin Ranyard of Higgledy Garden. This year we started a new flower garden. And what that has taught me is two things. One, they look beautiful. Two, they're dead simple. In fact, it's taught me three things. And three, it has increased the productivity of my veg garden exponentially. The beans are better than they've ever been, and I think it's very, very fundamentally down to all these pollinators that we've brought into the garden. If you haven't been watching Learn How to Garden for a while, you could watch last September's newsletter. It still has total relevance for what you can grow. I don't use scripts, so sometimes I forget all the bits I should be telling you. And if you're not subscribed, subscribe to us, because the subscribers newsletter does contain stuff in a bit more detail. And in fact, this one, I think there's a short film where I went to one of the French markets just to sort of get quite excited about why it's important we grow our own food. We'll just pop to the sweet corn, then we'll wrap up. We're down in the no-dig bed. We've come to my allotment, and in front of me here we have our celery, which is fantastic. I mean, this really has grown brilliantly in the no-dig bed. When you look at sweet corn, you want the little tassel here to be looking brown and almost dried out before you test it. And then you need to open this up slowly, because if it's not ready, you're going to have to cover it back up. And what you're looking for is so that the kernels in this sweet corn, when we finally get into it, the kernels here, if we press them, they should exude or leak a white fluid. If it's still clear, which this is, that isn't yet ripe. So cover it back up and we'll leave it for a few more days. Sweet corn, just like runner beans, borlotti beans, climbing French beans, are one of the things that you should still be feeding. Feed these with a potash feed. It will totally transform the beans and the sweet corn. It will encourage them to ripen and they will get bigger. I'm not particularly concerned about these yet. You know, if they don't ripen for another month, I don't mind. Sweet corn for me are always quite on the edge of what I can grow. And I grow them purely because if you've never had a fresh sweet corn from your own garden, you've never tasted fresh sweet corn. Because within a half an hour of this being pulled off, a lot of the sugars will start to turn to starch. It's the sort of thing that I always say, you want the pan boiling with water before you pick it. So we might even wait until next month's newsletter to pick this. I hope you enjoy what we're doing here at Learn How to Garden. If you're not subscribed, I know I've said it a couple of times before, the subscribers newsletters are getting more and more sort of in depth as we go along, and due to demand we are launching 1 or 2 courses this winter. We're doing a course with a friend of mine called Joe who knows nothing at all about gardening, and that's going to be literally all the basics from day one. You know, what is soil, what's pH, how does it all work. And we're also going to be doing a really in-depth course on no-dig beds and how to grow with them. And these are just in demand to sort of, you know, in response to questions that we've had here at Learn How to Garden. So thanks a lot for subscribing, thanks a lot for watching. I'm glad you enjoy what we're doing. Bye.